So, this is a picture of Spargo's hut. I grew up, I was fortunate enough to be in a snow skiing family, and we had a family holiday at Mt Hotham when I was in year 12. And we were staying in a lodge there. And we were doing what everybody did in those days. You'd ski down the runs and you'd take the toes back up again and ski down and up you'd go. And one sunny day, a young couple who were staying in the lodge with us announced that they weren't going to ski on the runs this day. They were going to go up to Spargo's hut and have a picnic. And I thought, wow, what a romantic idea. That sounds like it is, but we didn't go up there ourselves. A decade later, I was bushwalking up around Mount Feathertop with a mate, and for one reason or another we found ourselves a day ahead of schedule, and we didn't want to just go home. It was a long weekend. And he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, there is this place, Spargo's hut, that sounds rather interesting. We'd go up there. So he agreed we would do that. So I went out there. It was about a 2-hour walk. There was no track. It was just through the bush. And I knew the hut had been abandoned. I knew that much about it many decades before. And I looked in the window and I said to him, there's still somebody living there. And I got a bit of a shock. Anyway, we had our lunch on the grass outside, and I said, well, have another look just before we leave. And I had a closer look. And I could see that it was abandoned, but it was still crammed full with all the items necessary for everyday living. And I thought, this is very interesting. Somebody's dug in here long term, above the snow line, in a one-room hut. And it looked like it wasn't just a man, but a woman had been there as well. And this played on my mind. And several years later, back in 1987, I went back and I became more involved with the hut. And I did 3 things. I chose a sunny day to take a complete photographic inventory of all the contents of the hut as I could. I nominated for protection with the Historic Buildings Council, and was when the nomination came through 18 months later, I was told it was the first non-mansion to be registered in the state of Victoria, so that was quite nice. And the other thing I did was, with a little micro cassette recorder my father had given me, I started travelling around Victoria, interviewing and recording anybody I could find who had known either one or both of the occupants of the hut, who I learnt were Bill Spargo and his English-born partner, eventually wife, Evelyn Piper. So if you just run through them, Maggie, I haven't got much time, I'll move really quickly. That's Spargo's hut. That's looking down from Golden Point above the hut. This black line is of interest. We'll talk more about that later. That's a little old fence post there. And you can see there's a patch over a rusted area on that wall there too. This is of interest too. Keep going. So I'll just run through these pretty quick. This was a picture of a sailing ship that was on a table in the hut. Keep going. I knew that Bill had discovered a rich gold reef called the Red Robin Mine near Mt Hotham. And this postcard of an English red robin was on the mantelpiece in the hut. I should keep going. I should add that both the painting and the postcard have since been lost, which is a shame, but at least we have a photographic record of them both. This is a chair that's been patched. Next photo. Now I was intrigued by this black steel patch to repair the chair applied for these E.M. Piper. I thought, who was E.M. Piper? Later discovered it was Evelyn Piper. Keep going. Homemade brooms. Bill's homemade brooms. Next one. Homemade brooms with the bed. Next one. Okay, big hand saw. Coolgardie safe for keeping food and meat cool in the days before refrigeration. I was told that they used to soak nets of cord in kerosene and wrap them around the bottom of the leg to stop the ants climbing up to get the meat. Next one. Another one, that's W.V. Spargo's carved into the handle of the saw. Next one. His old overcoat. Next one. Boys in Melbourne. Next photo. His boots. Whiz through the next couple. You don't need to see too many angles of boots. Next one. Next one. Oh, his umbrella. He was known for carrying an umbrella in the days before men really carried umbrellas. Next one. Practical man. I think that might be ivory, the handle of the umbrella. Next photo. One of the things is the ceiling. One of the things the Historic Buildings Council liked was that much of it was in the round, made out of snow gum, which had been cut from nearby. Next one. Stone fireplace. Keep going. Ski on the wall. Keep going. Yeah, so these are the items. Cheese grater, pots, more pots. Keep going. Keep going. Golden syrup. Next one. Fire hoses. This was really interesting. I'll talk about them more later. old sort of crack-eating fire hoses. Next one. An axe, keep going. Velvet soap, next one. Yeah, pot, okay. Keep going. Sugar bag. Possibly used as a pillow, I think. Keep going. Okay, so I think that's a toothbrush. Shotgun cartridge, large innate plate. You can't see there, box of buttons, and that's a little case for goggles down the bottom there. Next one, clothes pegs in the oil can. Keep going. Fly spray. Next one, oven mitt. Next one, golf putter. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah, box of stuff, I guess. Keep going. Kettle, and a bit of piping with some thread at one end used to fashion a handle. Next one, bottle. Yep, keep going. And the books. Next photo. These novels, The Forsyte Sign, The Lonely Plough, Glory of the Conquered, and the Macpherson's Grinding up there. Next one, Punch magazine, 1930s. Keep going, and yeah, Chemical Engineering Mining Review. Next photo, some mining pieces from random pages of the magazine. Next one, and this was a huge gold dredge that was very active in Harrickville, near Mt Hotham in the post-war years. Stop there. So I went back in the winter, got some photos of the hut in the winter. Next photo. There it is again. Again, next photo. There it is again. Again, another fence post we'll talk about later, possibly. Again, there that same shot from the top of Golden Point. Next photo. Okay, that's looking across from the Alpine Village. The road is, well, probably from the road really, but the hut's about there on the plateau there. There's some scarring here, which is gold mining activity from the 19th century, which Bill contributed to. Next one. Okay, there's a telephoto lens, there's the hut down there. Next one. Okay, stop there, that'll do. So that's a sample of what I did. So I'll just quickly run through the story as I understand it to be, given that there are still many gaps. So that's Bill Spargo there. He was the oldest of four of the Spargo children. That's the next oldest, Mary, who they call Polly. That's Elsie, the next one, and the youngest is Cecil. The oldest three were all born in Bairnsdale. Benjamin Spargo, their grandfather, was very active as a gold miner in the 19th century around northeastern Victoria. He had about 10 children, of whom their father was about number 6. They were born at the brewery, actually, in Picnic Point in Bairnsdale. They owned a brewery for a while. The brewery didn't go very well. The family lost a lot of money in the 1890s depression. Bill was born in 1888, and the family actually retreated to Melbourne in the suburb of Brunswick, and Cecil was born in Brunswick. Next photo. There we are. That's Cecil standing in front of the home in 100 Wilson Street, Brunswick, which is still there, and is only a 10-minute walk from where I work in Brunswick these days, and the house is unchanged since that time. That was given to me by Cecil's grandson Neville, who lives in Sydney. Next photo. So that's a photo of Bill as he was as a young man. Looks like a studio photo. Next photo. Okay, so a bit about the story of Bill, and then we'll talk a bit about Evelyn. Bill was essentially, as soon as he could, he left home in Brunswick, probably in his mid to late teens, and he returned to northeast Victoria, which was the area that he loved and never really left, where his grandfather had been. He was essentially a road patrolman, country road patrolman, and in 1921 he was appointed head of the road gang, given the task of resurrecting the Alpine road that ran between Harrickville and Omeo. It had been a mining track in the 19th century to carry people through the gold fields of the Ovens Valley and Omeo, and then it fell into disrepair in the First World War. In the 1920s you had recreation, you had money, you had tourism, and snow skiing was all getting going, and the road needed a lot of work. Given, mind you, there were no machines, they only had horse-drawn equipment in those days, so there wasn't all that much they could do. But in 1925, they built this stone cottage, they called it, on the saddle between Mt Hotham and Mount Higginbotham to house Bill Spargo and his co-workers. and built the country road forward to allow him to take in paying guests during the winter months, and thus was born the Hotham Ski Resort. And it celebrates its centenary this year, 1925 to 2025. This was taken about 1927. Next photo. That's an interior shot. Melbourne Walking Club, I think Easter 1927, that is. Next photo. Bill was also a very keen photographer, and he developed his own photos up there. This was his favourite picture of the Hotham Heights in winter. One of the wonderful things about these photos is there's such a practical demonstration of climate change, because you can see how deep the snow was in those days. And we don't get snowfalls anything like that now. You really can't refute it when you look at this full collection of photographs. Next photo. That's the chalet. That's Mount Hotham over there. This is Australia Drift over there. Photo taken from Mount Hotham. Next photo. Okay, so Bill had this characteristic sort of quite angular, sort of severe handwriting. Snow drifts that intersect the Alpine Road in summer months. The snow is frozen hard, and explosives have to be used to shift it. Next photo. So that's how you deal with snow drifts. Just blow them up. It's not used so much these days. Next photo. See, look at that, walls of snow. Not even a recent snowfall. There's dirt on the ground. There's been a lot of snow melt, and you've still got these. That's Bill's motorbike. These extraordinary walls of snow on the side, just unthinkable these days. Next photo. Keith Murdoch was a keen visitor to the Hotham Heights chalet. It was called a chalet because it didn't have a licence. There was the St Bernard Hospice only 6 miles away, and that did have the licence, so they didn't get the licence at Mount Hotham. And Bill used to take a lot of photos to publicise the chalet and send them down to Melbourne, where Keith Murdoch would publish them in the Herald and Sun. These are from 1929. Next photo. Okay, so Evelyn enters the picture about this point. Evelyn Maud Piper was an English-born widow, and I should add that by the time I started my research, both Bill and Evelyn were dead, but I did manage to make contact with descendants and family members of both of them, and I've been in touch with Evelyn's descendants for several decades now in England, although I've never met any of them, yeah, some go and new ones arrive and so on. But the story is that essentially that Evelyn was born in 1900, so she was a bit younger than Bill, or 12 years younger, and she married a man called Harry Piper shortly after the First World War, and in 1922 they had a son called Stephen, and then the following year Harry died. So she was left at the age of 22 with a newborn baby. Not a particularly wealthy family, nothing much in the way of it, not particularly good education, and a difficult world for a single mother back in those days. She eventually got a job, I gather, working as the governess or the chaperone for the daughter of some sort of international gambling character who was a fairly shady sort of fellow, as I gather, and made a lot of enemies and had to keep moving. And eventually she left that and wound up on the shores of Australia. She was at Healesville for a while, but I don't know much about it. But somehow in 1929 she wound up at Mt Hotham with Bill Spargo. And this is the first documented meeting between the two. For some reason, they were leaving Mt Hotham, leaving from Diamantina Hut, which is near Mt Hotham, travelling down the Bonnecord Spur to Harryfield, and there was some errand they had to complete. They left quite late in the day. The weather was terrible. They got a certain way down there, and Bill fell over some cliff or cornice or precipice, and Evelyn pulled him back up and rescued him. And they retreated, and through the fog they found their way back to Diamantina Hut, which Evelyn was astonished by, because it's just a needle in a haystack, really. They had a second attempt to get down the Bonnecord Spur. They got lost, and they were found by a search party that had come up from Harryfield. So this is Evelyn's characteristic softer handwriting. June 1929, ready for anything after a shivering night, sitting up on boxes at Diamantina Hut, bunks covered with snow and ice. Next photo. So that's the Diamantina Hut there. That's Evelyn getting ready for the walk down to Harryfield. That's the dog Trixie who accompanied them. Next photo. This is when they're found by the search party. We are found by F. Wraith and Constable Anderson after 48 hours on the mountains. Next photo. So Bill would have taken this, I would imagine. That's Frank Rake, who owned the general store in Harrickville. That's probably his son Carl. I expect that's Constable Anderson and Evelyn picking up behind the horses there. And keep going, next photo. And so Evelyn made a huge impression on Bill at that first, during that first adventure together, and she stayed on at the chalet after that. 1928 had been a difficult year for Bill. A man called Helmut Kochter had been appointed as his co-manager, and he was sort of an arrogant, very athletic Austrian, and they actually had a fight, and Kochter actually hit Spargo and ended up probably with the police and went to Mt Hotham. Bill returned. Bill spent the year with his younger brother Cecil in Pascoe Vale at the house in Melbourne. And Cecil had his wife Nell and his 3-year-old, or his son Len, with them. And the following year they returned to Mt Hotham. Bill, in partnership with Cecil, they were given a 5-year lease, and they managed the chalet together. Bill wasn't much good with his hands. He was a pretty sort of bush carpenter. Cecil was a beautiful cabinet maker and lovely builder. He got a job to build a house at Kabungra, and he decided to ski there with his young son Len. This is Leonard Spargo, age 3, whose home is higher than any other boys in Australia. He lives 6,000 feet above sea level and has become, under the tutorage of his uncle, Mr. W.D. Spargo, an expert ski runner. And it was quite a splash at the time. And I sort of talk in the book how I think that Stephen must have been in the shadows somewhat. He was 4 years older than Len. He wasn't entirely legitimate, and the focus would have been very much on the cuter Len. Len told me, because I interviewed Len as an old man, and he told me how his father had made things like he made a little toy wooden crocodile with painted white teeth and red tongue and lips and so on, and he would hide under the tables and scare the guests with his toy crocodile. Next photo. Okay, so I was in touch with Evelyn's grandson for many years. I think he must have been about my age. And then, and his mother, Evelyn's daughter-in-law, had many years ago sent me a package of information from England, Evelyn's private papers, and I never received it. And I just really wrote it off. And then Sam died a couple of years ago of cancer, and I got an email from his daughter Kate last year saying she was cleaning out her father's apartment, and at the back of a cupboard was some boxes that looked like they'd been to Australia and back. That belonged to Evelyn. So. This was the start. So she wasn't prepared to just suck it in the plane again, because this was all new information to her. She didn't know anything about her great-grandmother, but she had sent me stuff. And last year I got these first photos showing Stephen as a young boy. They do look better on the smart TV, I have to say. But that's the chalet there. That's Evelyn, that's Stephen. They're both holding dogs. There's a third dog down there. There's this column of stone that Stephen must have built that appears in several of the photos. And this would be pretty much right where the Hotham Ski Village is these days. That's Stephen with Bill, a couple of dogs again. And next, so this is a great shot. It's called The Young Geologist, and this is Bill showing young Stephen how to pan for gold. Next photo. And there he is up on some rocks with a couple of the dogs again. Next one. This is Evelyn's handwriting, 1930, hanging out the clothes. Next photo, there she is hanging out what they're washing to dry at the chalet. My guess is that she was probably getting board and lodgings, but no real salary at this time. And next photo. Okay. Now this amazed me when it came. This is obviously by Evelyn, and it's a sort of sketch or cartoon. The biggest ski bum of them all. This is the original Piper, found by Jones among the Hotham collection of ski bums. It is generally known to connoisseurs as the Hotham Piper. So she's fantasised about there being some future collection of pictures of ski bums, and hers being one of the most famous, which is just complete fantasy. And the interesting thing is that her personality was so different to Bill, because Bill was introvert, he was a loner, he had no sense of humour, he had no real imagination, he had tremendous perseverance and self-belief. Evelyn was sociable, people described her as good company, she had a good sense of humour, she was creative, so they were really chalk and cheese, the two of them. Next photo. Okay, so a lot happens around about this time. What's the next photo, just out of curiosity? Have you missed one? Just go back. I feel something's been missed. No? Okay, next one? Okay, that'll do. That doesn't matter. That's okay. So what happened was that Evelyn realised that it was time to take Stephen back to England. He had to go to school. He should have been at school already. And she went back to England to leave Stephen with her parents. And the plan was that she was to come back to a salaried position at the chalet as cook or something like that. Bill at the same time decided to spread his wings and applied for land to build a guest house down at the bottom of the valley at Swindler's Valley. And I don't know how he expected the guests to get in and get out, but he applied for this land. And he also applied for a miner's right to build a hut on the ridge on the other side of Swindler's Creek. The application was referred to the Country Roads Board, who decided to inspect the chalet and see exactly what was going on up there. And they came to the conclusion that Bill was much more interested in gold prospecting than looking after guests, which of course he was. And not only did they refuse the application for land, but they terminated the lease. And at about the same time, the Victorian Railways, who were the de facto tourist authority of the day, took over the management of the chalet from the Country Roads Board. So Evelyn returned without Stephen, expecting a salaried position at the chalet, only to find, no, she's living in a one-room hut above the snow line, 2 hours walk from Hotham on the other side of the creek. Bit of a shock. Next photo. So this shows Bill with the beard on the right here, living in tent with another man I don't know. That would have been building that hut, I would think. It's in this creek. And I showed you that patch earlier. You see, this is where the first chimney was. In those days, there was no chimney back at the end where it is now. And I imagine this wooden hearth didn't insulate very well, and the coating of the iron got burnt and it became rust damaged. Okay, so this is how am I going time-wise? I'm conscious.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, thank you. Okay, so essentially what happened was that the railways took it over. They employed this couple, Ross and Jean Goldsworthy, to manage the chalet for them. They had no previous snow experience. They'd come up from Mount Wundillagong, an orchard in Wundillagong they were managing. They were told to have nothing to do with Bill Spargo. The plan was to send reinforcements over from the chalet at Mount Buffalo, but there was an early, quick, heavy dump. They had a full house coming the following weekend. The road was closed, they couldn't get any help and they didn't know what to do. And they rang the railways and said, what do we do? And they said, well, get whoever you can. They said, well, the only people here are Bill Spargo and his housekeeper. So they asked them, and Bill and Evelyn agreed to work for them. Here we are, that's fine, go to that next photo. This is Evelyn, crossing the creek with the males aboard for Hotham, melting snow above. Next photo. So this shows Evelyn on all fours with the male sexual crossing the creek on the fallen log. Next photo, there she is wringing the clothes out with the wringer. Go back. That's the big snowdrift there. Next photo. So I showed that black line before. So Bill built the place near a spring, and that was to be his water supply for the chalet. Here they are digging the ditch. That's Evelyn digging the ditch. There she is in snowshoes at the hut. That's the old chimney there. Next photo. There she is. You see the snow up so there she is just peeping out above the snow there. Next photo. And there she is on skis on the roof of the hut. And look at that, the snow right up to the rafters there. Yeah. Quick run through these very quickly. These are photos Bill would have taken. He was quite infatuated with her, obviously, making her own tracks at Mount Hotham. Mary's slide. No, yeah, okay, that'll do. Oh, I talked about a sense of humour. She used to send postcards back to Stephen. Nature forms this old snowman. It looks as though he is breathing the cold air, but this is just a mark on the negative. Next picture. There we go. Okay, so I can run through the rest of it fairly quickly. Go back. That there. So they were at the hut for about 5 years. Bill had some theories about how to find gold. I won't go into all of that. At the end, he said, "Look, there's no future here. Go home. You're wasting your time here." And she agreed to do that. She returned to England in 1938. She spent the Second World War there. 1939, fires came through. The chalet was burnt down. That's the remains of the chalet after the fire went through. Bill survived the fire in his hut. Had a loaded shotgun by the wall in case he didn't, but he did. and then in 1940 he discovered a rich gold reef. There he is camped at his gold mine. And he brought the gold out in 1941 on horseback, was loaded into this truck at the chalet. Don't move it. Taken down to the Bairnsdale School of Mines. He got 137 ounces from 2 tonnes of hand-picked gold, which was extraordinarily high. It was offered £60,000 by BHP, but refused to sell. And he sent a telegram to Evelyn and struck it rich. Next photo. So they couldn't do much during the war years. They brought more gold out in 42, but then things went quiet because there was nobody to work at the mine. Evelyn comes out, next photo, in 46 they get married. There they are, the only photo I know have of a married couple at the chalet. Keep going. They spent the winter of 46 at the mine in not much more than a tent. It was a very heavy winter. They nearly died. Keep going back. Evelyn spent some time in hospital, went back for the winter of 47, same thing happened. There was a famous story where she was carrying clothing out from the hut hanging out to dry. She banged her head on a low door, collapsed in the snow. That was the final straw. There was a famous meeting with the Spargo women at Polly's house in Melbourne. The mother Bella was there, Elsie the daughter was there, and Evelyn said, "I can't go on. I've done everything I can. I'm sorry. I'm leaving this relationship. I'm returning to England." The Spargo women gave her their blessing, and she returned soon after. This is the battery that Bill made at the mine in 1950. Keep going. That's Bill Spargo at 1950 at the mine. Okay, that'll do. She had the trouble was, by this stage, the mine was worth a lot less. It was so remote. It was prone to vandalism and theft. It was too cold in the winter to mine there with all the heavy snow, and in summer there wasn't enough water for the battery. So there were a lot of problems with the mine, and they couldn't sell it. And eventually, a friend of Evelyn, who was the widow of a wealthy mine manager at Harrickville, Lillian Staff, agreed. She had remarried a man called Norm Staff. She agreed to buy the mine from Bill and Evelyn. They sold it for £12,000. Took £6,000 each. Evelyn returned to England, and Bill retired to Stradbroke Island in Queensland. This is that's J.P.L. Kenny, who was the senior government geologist who helped Evelyn to find a seller for the mine. That's Bill there, and that's Norm Staff there with his bag. So that's pretty much the story. There's a lot more I could say. Evelyn died in 1976 in England. Bill actually died in 1959 at the age of 70 in a hospital in Brisbane. The hut is now protected. The resort values the hut now. It was refurbished a couple of years ago. It's part of a walk. And this year we're celebrating the centenary of the chalet. And I've been asked to talk at that dinner, which would be lovely, and talk about the book and so forth. So I didn't have time to tell you that the resort was very ambivalent about my interest in the hut back in 1987 and tried to throw me off the track, really. That's another story. But they've come full circle and they're on board now. So I guess that's...
Have you got your book?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay.
Pictures, are they in the book?
Yes, they are. Yeah, so that's the book. So snow, fire and gold. The photo on the front is taken by Bill, one of Bill's photos outside the hut in the 1930s. Most of these photos wouldn't have been developed until, I got them scanned last year, really. So if you'd like to talk more or buy a copy of the book, come and see. But thanks for giving me the opportunity to tell the story.